Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Charles Dobens. Thanks for being on the show again, Charles.
Thank you, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
Honored to have you back on the show. And the listeners, if you haven't heard of Charles before, you should go back and listen to show WS 131. Seems like forever ago. Almost 500. Yeah, over 500 shows ago, Charles.
And not only, I was 131. You tramp. I thought that I was like one of your first.
After this many shows, it almost was one of the first.
No kidding. Yeah. I don't think that helps you anybody anyway. Okay.
No, honored to have you back. In case you haven't heard of Charles also, he's a multifamily investor, attorney, and mentor to multifamily investors all around the country. Charles founded the Multifamily Investing Academy, where he works with students in his Owner Forum program to train them in the correct way to acquire, operate, and own multifamily property. His legal and consulting practice has one specialty, and that's helping new investors overcome any lack of confidence in moving toward their financial objective of owning and operating apartments. Charles is uniquely qualified to walk investors confidently through the entire process of analyzing properties, negotiating contracts, organizing funding, as well as transitioning to ownership. Charles, thank you again. I'm looking forward to this. Why don't you give us a little, update of who you are, just for the listeners that haven't heard of you before, and your focus, and then I want to jump into just especially with your background, your experience level, some of the upcoming trends that you see happening in the multifamily business, just with everything that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thanks for having me, Whitney. It's, I am what I call the multifamilyattorney.com, and, that'll get you to my website. But one of the things when I was, starting off in multifamily and doing everything wrong, I realized that there's nobody there looking over your shoulder. You can hire a coach, and I did, and I hired attorneys, and they all, they were great attorneys, but they could close title, they could draft contracts, but they couldn't tell you if the deal was a good one. And so, that's when I realized that, there needs to be someone in the marketplace that can really protect the students in a way that the same way an attorney is your zealous advocate through the legal system, somebody who can, look over your shoulder and make sure you're doing everything correctly. And that's when I started the Owner Forum, and that was almost 10 years ago right now, Whitney. And it is amazing that, how long it's been, but it's been an absolute blast. I love it. My Owner Forum is made up of students who have become friends of mine. That's what happens in our group, and I make sure that they're protected. I want to make sure they're doing everything correctly, and I do not. And this is something that is key. I do not partner with my students. I know there are a lot of these gurus out there that take a cut of the action. I can't do that and still really maintain my law license, because if I did, and part of my compensation is derived by you doing a deal, and it's a bad deal,
right?
I could lose my license, and I'm not work too hard for that. So better off just making sure you're protected. That's my job as an attorney.
So when did you get into real estate versus when you became an attorney? I couldn't remember.
Oh, okay. So I actually started an insurance company many years ago and did that for many years, and then said, if I don't get out of the insurance business, I'm going to be in an early grave. So I quit the insurance business and started buying apartments. And that was probably about 2005. And then from that point on, we bought good properties. We bought bad properties. We survived the crash. We didn't survive the crash. I mean, we've been through so many different transactions. I say we, my wife and myself. And so it was after the crash when I had a lot of friends in this business, and they came to me and said, "Hey, can you represent me? The bank's looking to take my property. Anything you can do?" And I of course I said yes, and I said, by that stage, being an attorney in that situation, it's pretty reactionary. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You can't be proactive. Everything's already been done. You're just holding the guy's hand through the foreclosure process. This is back in 2008, 2009, when things were really bad. And so what I realized was that I looked at some of these deals and I asked the investor, I said, well, why'd you buy this property? Oh, it was a great deal. This guy said it was, I took this guy's class and he said, that this is exactly what you're looking for. And then I came to the realization that these are terrible deals. The guy, not only is he going to lose it, but he should never have bought it in the first place. And I said, these investors need help at the beginning to make sure they don't get themselves into a bad deal. And that's kind of where we went, how the Multifamily Investing Academy started, how I stopped practicing law. And that's what I tell all my students. I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. You will hire a lawyer, because my template's not good in all 50 states. My purchase and sale contract is not good in all 50 states. You're going to have local counsel. I will work with that local counsel and make sure everything goes right. But I can't represent you as your attorney. I'm only licensed in Massachusetts. So that's how the whole process got started.
Awesome. No,
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting or unique dynamic that you have, that background in addition to the real estate, just knowledge and ability as well. I love that dynamic. But, with that experience that you've had over many years now and many students and many deals, let's jump into just the trends and upcoming trends, things that you see happening. But maybe you can even highlight a little bit on through the pandemic and what you've seen happen and how you've seen that affect even students or your properties both.
Okay, so if we talk about the pandemic, it's going to be a discussion in the micro world of multifamily, because I'll tell you right now, the fundamentals of the multifamily business are so strong, and they're not getting any weaker. And a lot of that has to do with the demographic shifts that are going on in our country. And nothing says this story better than Chris Porter and John Cole's book, Big Shifts Ahead. And I did a whole webinar on this particular book, and it's a lot of fun. If you're looking for it, send me an email or go on my website. I think my assistant's got it posted there somehow. But I went through that entire book with a multifamily bent or slant as I went through it. The things that are going on right now in this country are so positive for multifamily. The kids that were born in the 1990s, 73% of them will only rent homes. They will never own. 73%. That's what we're looking at. That's one of the shifts that we're seeing. And because of those shifts, that is just going to make our business so incredibly strong. It also talks about the shifts of where people are moving to. And, they have a great slide that I talked about on Dan Hanford's program the other day, where it's the South grows while the North slows. And that's people are moving to the South. I know, believe me, I got about 5 more years of this place and I am done. And I think 5 years is going to be a stretch. I can't wait to get down south and where I'm warm all the time. I'm so tired of being cold. But
you mentioned 73% of people born in the 90s will never own a home. Is that because they won't have the career or the job, or they just don't want to, or do you understand?
Both.
Do you know why?
Yeah, both. 2 reasons are the biggest reasons. Number one is student debt. These kids are coming out of school with more debt than you can imagine, and that's killing them for home ownership. And that's going to have a massive impact on our country 40, 50, 60 years from now, because of what the federal government has done by taking over the student loan business and subsidizing it and watching it grow like you've never seen before. That is going to have a negative impact on these kids all the way for the rest of their lives. It is atrocious. I mean, you think, okay, fine, you paid off the loans. It took you 10, 20 years to do it. That's 10 or 20 years of lost life that you can never get back, that they could have been building assets. They could have been building their net worth, and they haven't because of student debt. That's number one. The other reason, too, is these kids, they're not looking at home ownership the way that our parents did or that I did back when I got out of college. It's not that important to them. I mean, they saw
Used to
what
be this
happened.
thing of pride, right? I want to own my own home and want to get it
Exactly.
paid for. And that's just, that desire's not there anymore.
It isn't. I mean, you look at it, and especially, you know, who did, I think, the biggest disservice to home ownership, and I can't thank him enough for it, is Robert Kiyosaki. I remember when his book first came out, when I first heard about Robert Kiyosaki's book, when he said that your family home is not an asset, I thought to myself, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And then I read the book, and then I started looking around like, oh my gosh, that guy's right. That guy is so right. And I could tell you, I mean, I live in a big, beautiful house, and man, that thing cost me close to $100,000 a year just to maintain. So yeah, that's a lousy investment. So, you know, that's, and the kids nowadays are seeing that, and they're like, I'm not gonna get into that. Why would I bother getting into that type of a situation? So that is all going to come back and impact our business on the multifamily side. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing. That multifamily is so incredibly strong, just because of the demographic changes that are going to be happening in this country. And keep in mind too, for us to survive as a country, our population, our homogenous population, our in-force American citizens are not producing children enough to be able to support the debt that we have created for ourselves. The only way our country can get out of the mess that it's in is by bringing in immigrants. Now, Whitney, I know you don't like immigrants, but I'm telling you right now,
I've never said that, by the way.
Kidding. Yeah, okay, fine. I'm teasing you. But the thing is, the only way that we can survive is we have to have a very strong immigration policy for this country. That's the only way. And immigrants come in here and they rent apartments. Not only do they rent apartments, they also buy apartments. I can tell you right now, my client base, I got about 150 clients in my program. I would venture to say half, if not more, are first generation immigrants. And those are the people looking to buy apartments. So for those reasons, it's a great business to be in. And a couple other reasons why, and people don't quite see this one. Listen, I was around for the last crash. I've been through the cycle. I've been actually, because of the generation that I was born in, and they talk about this in the book, Big Shifts Ahead. Because of the generation I was born in, my generation has the lowest net worth of any generation ever before in its history. And that's because we've been through 3 negative real estate cycles, 3 very bad real estate cycles. We've lost more net worth, foreclosures, in my generation than any other group. And now keep in mind,
I heard it was pretty bad in the 30s, was it?
Oh, you want to do that to me, do you now,
okay.
Whitney? Oh, bring it on, brother. Bring it on. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I love it when podcasters turn 10 years old, like yourself. It's always fun talking to you. And I'm not even going to go into the fact that you used to be a state trooper. I'm not even going to touch that one right now, okay? I'm going to leave that one alone. But one of the things is that, and I talk about this all the time, one of my most favorite movies is The Big Short. The Big Short. Folks, if you haven't seen it, you got to go see it. And you can't see it once. You got to watch it like 4 times, and you got to bring a notepad, and you got to write down what's going on in that movie, because you will understand what went on back in 2008 when everything started to crash. And the key that you have to understand, and why that movie for me is a great way to use as an example what's going on today, is to understand that back in 2008, if you could fog up a mirror, you could get a multifamily loan. And back then, we called them, and we still do. We call them, and Whitney, you're going to laugh, and as soon as you do, I know you're going to know what I'm talking about. We call them California investors. These were the people that had more money than smarts, and they came into different areas like Texas, and they went and bought everything up because the cap rates were so high, and they could afford to buy so much. As soon as the market crashed, they were gone, and all of these properties sat sat fallow. There was nothing going on. There were so many foreclosures, and Fannie and Freddie went belly up. So Fannie and Freddie got a little smart, and they said, we're not going to rent to these types of people anymore. We're going to put in new underwriting requirements for a multifamily mortgage. And what they did back then is why multifamily is so strong today. And I have a lot of students that are saying, hey, there's no way I can qualify for this mortgage. I don't have the net worth. They want a key principal. I said, listen, I can take care of all of those problems for you. But we have to understand there's a reason why the lenders have that requirement on their guidelines. It's because it protects this whole entire industry from something happening like 2008. So
what's the requirement, and what happened?
Oh, typically key principal has to have you have to have a key principal on your deal who can do three things. First off, they have to have a net worth equal to the purchase price of the property. They have to have liquidity equal to about 9 months of the mortgage payments, and they have to have experience. And if you're doing this on a local basis, you don't really need the experience. If you're doing this on as an absentee landlord, as they call it, you have to have at least 2 years of multifamily experience. That's a barrier to entry that many people can't overcome. Many new investors can't overcome. And they're like, well, how am I supposed to get in this business? Well, we'll find you a KP to partner with you on that particular deal. But you have to understand that this barrier to your entry is a good thing once you're in. Because now you know that they're not just going to give out loans to anybody. Now that property has to be, you have to look after that baby every step of the way, or you're not going to get the mortgage, and that's good for us. That's a protection on our industry, and that's one of the reasons why I actually like what's happened since then, and why I think multifamily is so incredibly strong. And let me just give you. I got a couple more, but one of them that I always like to talk about is what I call the apartments.com test. And I want you, if you're looking at a particular deal, I want you to do the apartments.com test. So let me tell you my personal situation. So I just sold 2 of my complexes, and we got a couple more to go. And then I'm moving, I've got my life here in New Hampshire. We're looking to move down to South Carolina. But in the meantime, I want to invest in Southern New Hampshire. I think Southern New Hampshire is a phenomenal place to do business. Okay. It is just outside of Massachusetts, right on the border. The towns that I'm looking to invest in are right along the border. And, New Hampshire has no sales, no income tax. So more and more people want to live here. And everything's going great. So I've been looking to buy an apartment complex in Southern New Hampshire. Whitney, and I know my students are looking all over the country as well too, but up here in this particular area, you can't find them. They just don't exist. And the ones that pop up for sale, they are overpriced.
Right.
But here's the test, and this is the key: is go find your market, find the communities that you're looking in, get the zip codes, go to apartments.com. Type in the zip code, type in the town, and hit enter, and look for those types of properties that fit the classification of the deals that you're looking for, A, B, C class property. When you look at those properties, click on them and see if they have any availability. And Whitney, the properties that I'm looking for in Southern New Hampshire along that southern tier, there's a waiting list. You can't get in. The problem the golf course that I grew up playing right across the way from my house, this is its last year. 36-hole public course. This is its last year. Amazon is building a distribution center. They're putting in 5,000 new jobs, and there's no place for these people to live. So guess what I'm doing? I'm building. And so my job is now, I'm not looking for the properties, I'm looking for the land. And I've already got the construction set up. I'm just looking for the land. I'm going to go through the process of acquiring the land, and I'm ready to rock and roll, because that's where in my marketplace, that's where the demand is. That's where the need is, because the demand is so incredibly strong for our product. And that's the case as it is. There's a $500,000 net, 500,000 net households that will not have a place to live over the next 5 years. we've got to build them. It's an amazing business to be in right now.
Gene Trowbridge and Jonathan Ney, founding partners of the top syndication firm Trowbridge Law Group, LLP, have a legal team with over 50 years of combined experience in real estate syndication and the practice of real estate securities law. Over this time, Gene and his partners in several past firms and currently have helped clients raise close to $5 billion in offerings by empowering entrepreneurs to raise capital legally. To learn more about Trowbridge Law Group, LLP, visit their website at trowbridgelawgroup.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Speaking of which, as far as the next 5 years, but even like shorter than that, what do you see over the next 6 months to a year? Are you still advising, students to be looking for deals, buying deals right now? Or is it like, well, I've heard so many people say, oh no, we're waiting 6 months or a year to see, how all this turns out. What's your view on that?
Well, you always have to be looking. You always have to be looking. Don't think I'm just going to ride the trends. No. You've got to find the deals. That's your job as a multifamily investor. 90% of this business is sales and marketing. You have to be prospecting for your first sale every single day. Your first sale in this business is to get a seller to accept your offer. That's the first sale. If you don't make that sale, you've got nothing going on. You're like in the insurance business. You got to get out there every day looking for that prospect who's going to say yes to your insurance product. In this business, you've got to get out there every single day and look for that person who's going to say yes to your offer. So don't follow these trends like, oh, well, now is not the right time to buy because, of COVID. Bull. And let me tell you why. The world doesn't follow what's going on with COVID. Families, husbands and wives get divorced and they have to sell that property. The owner of that property for the last 40 years passes away, and his absentee family, who all the kids live, 3,000 miles away, they don't want to have anything to do with that property. If you're sitting in your house waiting for things to happen, get out of your comfort zone. Nothing grows in your comfort zone. So don't sit around and wait. Get out there and find those deals. Don't worry about what's going on with COVID. I'll tell you what's going on with COVID. Rents are off. Okay? Rents will be back on. We anticipate about a 7% reduction in the rents over the next 6 months. And then next year, it's going to take back off again. So why don't you go in there now and buy property when the rents are at the lowest, as they've been for the last 5 years? Pay less for your property, and next year it's going to take off again. Or you can sit around and wait. But I'll tell you, I don't have time, Whitney. I'm not like you. I graduated from elementary school years ago. You, on the other hand, you still have to look at yourself. When was the last time you shaved? When was the last time you shaved? I had a race with my kids. That's why I have a beard right now. I was sitting around the dining room table with my kids. I have a 20-year-old son and a 24-year-old son, and they're like got facial hair. I'm like, when was the last time you shaved? And one of my sons says, oh, that's about a week ago. I said, that's a week's growth? He goes, yeah. I said, tell you what, I'm not going to shave right now. I'm going to shave, and I'm going to pass you within 2 weeks. I'm going to go, within 2 weeks, my beard will be so much longer than yours. And this is like what ended up happening in 2 weeks. My kids get nothing for facial hair. It looks like you, for crying out loud.
What about changes?
You can shave with a face cloth, for crying out loud.
How has changes? How has this affected your underwriting right now? Tell us how you're underwriting deals right now. With we're still looking for deals. I believe I agree with you completely. You always have to be looking.
Yeah.
How else are you going to have a pulse on what's happening? And so how is that? How do you know if it's a deal right now?
Right. Okay. So two major things have shifted in our underwriting process as a result of COVID. Number one is 0% rent increase for the next 2 years. Underwrite for 0%. Number two is the issue is that reserve requirement from Fannie and Freddie. Now, understand, folks, and you can find these. You can go online and you can Google them because I don't have them right here in front of me. Actually, I think I can pull it up. But just to give you an idea that there's a okay, let me see. Construction slowed. Let me just do underwrite. Okay, let's see if this is it. Yeah. Okay. So what's happened is Fannie just came out with their new guidelines, and they're telling you what types of deals require what types of reserve requirements. And typically it's about 9 months of principal and interest that you need to set aside. It varies based upon the tier of the property, and it's actually not the tier of the property, the tier of the loan. But they are coming out and telling you need to reserve 9 months in order to make the deal happen. And the thing is, Fannie, Fannie wants 18 months of debt service for deals below 6 million, and Freddie is okay with 12 months. Okay, so that's why you're going to see more people going with Freddie. I have a student that's doing a deal right now, and I'll tell you right now, the requirements that Fannie and Freddie are putting on him could kill the deal. Mm-hmm. And that's really unfortunate, but we got to figure out ways around that. And so you've got to, if you're listening to me right now, you've got to understand those requirements while you are underwriting that particular deal, how you need to build those reserves into your analysis, because they are going to impact your cash flow.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, you've got to be real about it, because it's a big difference.
Where are you finding that information? And just so the listeners know, like where do you see those requirements and what Freddie and Fannie are have on right now for requirements?
Oh, you can go right on Fannie Mae. Just Google Fannie Mae underwriting requirements. It's really about throwing the keyword COVID, because that's really what'll pop it up. And you also want to do Fannie Mae, and you also want to do Freddie Mac. Those two particular lenders. Those are the requirements that we're looking for. If you're looking, you speak to a particular broker, they may be able to find you some insurance company money, some conduit loans, some bridge financing where you're not needing those types of requirements. You're not dealing with the Fannie or Freddie. So in that regard, you might be able to skirt those issues, but nevertheless, you need to take it into consideration. But also, you can take it into consideration to use it to your advantage, to go to the seller and say, I got a problem, because of all that's going on. My bank is underwriting this deal as if we're not going to get a rent increase for the next 2 years. And really, that's exactly how the underwriters are doing it. They're not looking for a rate increase for the next 2 years. You can use that information against the seller to your benefit. So don't hesitate, guys. Yeah. Don't hesitate. I mean, if you can drop that price, that's money that his kids don't get, that your kids do get. So
you mentioned that you expect a 7% reduction, say within the next 6 months or so in rent. Are you also underwriting that as well?
No, just building it in as a flat for the next 2 years. Yeah. Because remember, if that's the case over the next 7 years, we're going to start to see that trend right now. And so we can see that trend in a trailing 12, and that's going to impact the NOI, which will then impact the price. So the seller, this is another thing, is COVID, a lot of these sellers thought that the world was not going to cave in. And for some of them it did. So you're going to start to see some sellers who are like, hey, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. I better get myself off of, not be a hog here, and just grab my chips and get out of this business right now. And that's when you're going to start to see some movement on deals.
Speaking of reserves, I know we talked about what, agencies are requiring, and just a question I like to ask operators, especially experienced as you are, how do you account for reserves, even in this market? What kind of reserves? Do you have some type of method, that you tell students to have, this much per this kind of property, or how do you do that?
Well, we do. Like, I just use the standard $300 per unit per year. So understand what that number represents. And obviously, if you're dealing with a Class A property, the lender's going to do lower. But just remember, we are in a business. All business requires cash. If a business doesn't have cash, it's out of business. So don't try to, run short like, oh, I don't need $200 per unit per year reserves. Yeah, go ahead and raise the money and have that money in a bank, because you never know when something like COVID is going to hit again. So usually about $300 per unit per year is what I use as a reserve.
And you're going to have that up front for, like, depending on how the hold period of time, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd keep that in the bank. And really, listen, I know it's going to impact the cash on cash return because it's money that's just sitting in the bank account. But you'd much rather have the money there and have a slightly lower cash on cash return than having a cash call for your investors, because they'll be like, "What's going on? What do you mean you need more money?" So that's the best way to run these types of deals. And keep in mind, when I first got started in this business, the big reserve number back then was $200 per unit per year. Now seems the minimum is $300. And the reason is because obviously, I've been doing this longer than you've been. Yeah, I know we're going to do this, Whitney, all day long. But when I first started, inflation has gone up and the properties have gotten older. So that's why you need more money on your reserves.
No doubt.
And remember, these reserves are just to sit and account for the running of the operations. This is not necessarily over and above what the lender wants, as far as their reserve replacements. And if you are having any type of rehab, if you're buying this property as a repositioning, please don't try to pay for your repositioning with current cash flows. No greater recipe for disaster. Raise all the money you need up front and get to work.
For sure. For sure. No, that's great advice. No doubt about it. Anything else as far as the market's concerned that you see happening that we need to be aware of before I jump to a few final questions before we run out of time?
But no, I think barriers to entry, I think, are really helping our business. As I tell my students, the first 2 deals are going to be the toughest ones you ever do. But once you've got 2 done, the deals are going to just start dropping on your lap. And for new investors, I think the barrier to entry is problematic. But once you get over that, this is a great business, best business in the world to be in.
For sure. Well, what's a way you've recently improved your business that we could apply to ours besides an airplane?
You want to talk about my plane? And I can never figure out how this works. This is not my plane. You know what my plane looks like. This is this is a legendary plane. And so I think that's a DC-3. Yes, definitely. Beautiful. No. So how have I improved my business? I tell you, part of the operations of my business have been to really just, right now we are in the phase down period for the properties that we own, so that we can start to build. I tell you, building is where I see the future going. I'm looking at modular. I'm looking at stick built. I'm going to the planning board meetings in my town, the first and third Thursday of every month. I am listening to how it's done. It is really, it's an area of this business that you and I I never thought about building. I would just go out and buy performing assets. I'm telling you right now, I think the opportunities for new investors may be in buying land and understanding the zoning laws and understanding how to do this. And this is all going to be part of my program at some point. But that's kind of where we see it going right now.
Is it more in your specific market, or are you saying, okay, we should probably investigate this option a little more, probably in other markets, or no matter what market we're in?
Everywhere. If you are having trouble finding deals in your marketplace because the competition is too tough, you're getting beat out, you're getting best and final, and then you're losing, and you run that apartments.com test and you see, holy cow, there's a need here for more units. People just can't find what they're looking for. Try to be a consumer of your product. Go out there and see how tough it is to find units available based upon first 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and studios. You'll get a chance to see what it's like for these people coming into your marketplace, that they've got no place to live. They've got no place to live, and it's going to continue that way. So I look at it as like, I don't care. You do that test. Make sure there's only, according to the one of the studies that I just looked at, out of the top 150 MSAs, there were only 3 MSAs that had more supply than demand: Miami, Austin, and Washington, D.C. Everybody else had more demand than supply. Wow. What does that tell you? If you're all looking for trends, you're all trying to figure out what the next emerging market is, the next emerging market might not be a geographical market. It may be a form of real estate market. It may be in construction as opposed to buying non-performing assets or something like that. That might be where the next trend is.
What's your best source for finding new investors right now or meeting new investors?
Oh, this, getting out there and finding people, always talking, asking everybody, hey, listen, my business is this, and this is a lot of people, this is part of the sales process, is asking people to invest with you. And a lot of people that look to get into this business just don't feel comfortable doing that. So what they do is I teach them to make it an easy ask. Don't put the onus on the person sitting across from you. What I want you to do is ask this simple question. This is what I do. Do you know anyone that might be interested? And that doesn't put, you're not asking the person in front of you to buy. You're just asking them to help you. Who else do you know that might be interested in that? Their reaction might be, hey, what about me? I'm interested in this. Okay, good. Let's talk more about it. So you've got to always be asking people to invest with you or to build up your database. I've had, it's interesting, Whitney, I had a bunch of calls today, a bunch of podcast calls today with other investors, other syndicators, and this is how they did it. They are always, as much as they were looking for deals, they're looking for money. And that's right. What you got to do. It really is.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Probably my good looks. Probably good looks. Yeah.
No, seriously.
No, seriously. Wow. Oh, okay. Listen, my favorite new slogan, which is nothing grows in your comfort zone.
For sure.
Two things have, two mantras that I have is, number one is, well, if he can do it, so can I. And that has allowed me to do anything, fly planes, buy apartments, go to law school. Hey, if these guys can do it, so can I. And I want people, don't be intimidated by somebody else's success. We're all the same. If they can do it, so can you. And the number one thing is you've got to take action. If you don't take action, this is just you and me talking. And I know this has been very, intellectually stimulating for you, Whitney. I'm a little, I can't wait to go blah, 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 as I walk away. But, that's what I typically get out of the Whitney Sewell.
No, I love that. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And I don't think I've heard anybody say that before, like you said, though, about not being intimidated by other people's success. Because I think it's easy to do that. You say, oh, they could do it, but I could never do that. And that's the wrong mindset right there. I completely agree. If they can do it, I can do it too. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
So how do you like to give back, Charles?
How do I like to give back? Mm-hmm. Teaching. I'm always looking for somebody that needs a hand up. If I can find somebody to help, I'm always looking to do it. So I love doing this. It's a great, this business has allowed me to do things that I never could have done before for other people. Right now, I'm actually working with the principal of my high school on the what's called the Sacred Heart Scholar Fund, and it's for underprivileged kids in Nashua who want the opportunity to go to my high school. As a private high school, and my job in running this foundation is to get as many successful people involved so that we can take on 20 kids per year from underprivileged organizations to go through our high school. And it all came about from my father. My father was an orphan, and he just, was in an orphanage until he was 16. The state couldn't take care of him anymore. They had him go live with his alcoholic father. And from 16, 17, and 18, he lived in a 1-bedroom hotel room with his father, who was the night manager of this particular hotel. My dad ended up being class president, most popular boy, and a great guy as he was. One day he's walking down the street after school, and a carload of teachers pulled up next to him. And one of the teachers, who was his English teacher, who he kept in touch with until the day she died, she said, "Hey, Lenny, what are you doing after high school?" And my dad's like, I don't know. I can't do anything. I'm poor.
Mm.
And she says, a kid like you should go to college. So she went back and they raised $75 among all the teachers at Nashville High School to send him to college. He had to come up with the $25 remaining for the $100 tuition. And that got my father through college. I kind of made him think, hey, I can do this. And when he died, the doctors came in and said, Lenny, nothing more we can do for you. Make your plans. So he starts barking out all these commands to my sister and me. And he says, oh yeah, and pay this girl's tuition. And my sister and I look at each other like, what girl's tuition? We got a sister we don't know about? You're going to pay for someone's tuition? He goes, no. I've been paying her tuition. Go ahead and finish paying for it. Turns out it was a single mother who worked at the daycare of the Nashville YMCA, and she needed, in order to qualify and continue doing what she wanted to do, she had to get a teaching certificate, but she had to go to college first, and she didn't have the money to do it. And so the president of the Nashville YMCA came to my dad and said, hey, can you pay her tuition? And my dad said, yeah, absolutely, I'll pay her tuition. And so my dad passed. And I'm writing the checks, and so they got a call from the president of the Y, and I said, yep, I know I'm supposed to pay this. Here's her next semester's tuition. And he goes, are you going to pay for next year too? And I said, pay for next year? My dad said there was only one more semester left that I have to pay for. And he goes, oh no, she's got another year to go. And I said, well, my dad said pay her tuition. He didn't say pay one semester. So yep, I'll pay her tuition for her. I said, but this time, we're going to do it differently. And he goes, well, what are we going to do? I said, this time, I'm going to want to see her grades. And I'm going to treat her like a Dobens kid. I want to take a look at her grades. And the president of the Y says to me, he says, oh, that's not a problem. She gets straight A's. And I said, wow, she ain't no Dobens kid. That's for darn sure.
I appreciate you sharing that story. That's incredible. It's an incredible way to give back. And I'm grateful for that.
And so
awesome.
the president of my high school, Bishop Girton High School, heard me tell that story. She says, will you do this? I said, thank you. Oh, I can't wait to get started. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been working on.
Wow.
Cool.
Well, I look forward to seeing the success of that. And tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, Charles, and learn more about you.
Check me out, multifamilyinvestingacademy.com or themultifamilyattorney.com. I got some new stuff coming up. You definitely want to check it out. I'm partnering with another attorney, and we are creating a program that is like none other. And none other. My father would be rolling over in his grave if he heard me use incorrect English. So like no other. And so I will, that's definitely, it's no other. So I will, that's how you can get a hold of me. And I'd love to talk to you. I love this business. I love everything about it.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.